Our movie begins with Andy, his wife Kay, and their little daughter Rosie, living on a houseboat drifting along a river in Australia after a deadly virus has swept across the world, a virus that turns people into zombies within just 2 days, 48 hours. As they travel down the river, Andy notices 2 kids playing on the riverbank. He calls out to them, but they run toward their father, who quickly pulls out a gun to protect his family. Andy keeps moving along. A little later, he fishes some floating supplies out of the water, then explains to Kay that their food is running out, and he has no choice but to go ashore and look for more. In the next scene, we see a young Aboriginal girl repairing her shoe. Then we cut back to Andy, who spots an abandoned boat. He boards it to take a look around and finds food, canned goods, whiskey bottles, and all kinds of useful items. While gathering the supplies, he hears a strange, frightening noise coming from behind a door. He decides not to take any risks and heads back to his own boat, bringing the supplies to Kay. Later, exhausted, Andy falls asleep. During that time, Kay decides to go to the abandoned boat by herself to collect more items they might need. She convinces herself it's safe. But as she looks around, she hears a terrifying noise and rushes to leave, only to be attacked and bitten by a strange creature. It was a zombie. Andy wakes up to the sound of his daughter crying. He picks her up and starts looking for Kay, noticing blood stains on the floor. At that moment, Kay is in the bathroom trying to stop the bleeding from the bite. She checks a small bag Andy had earlier pulled from the river with his fishing net, and finds a wrist timer inside. It counts down the hours left before a person turns into a zombie. She realizes she has only 48 hours left. The bag also contains a strong painkiller injection to help the infected move without feeling pain. The family is forced to leave their spot and search for medical help. Along the way, they come across a burned body on the ground. Meanwhile, the Aboriginal girl, whose name is Thumi, is drawing in her notebook. She later leaves her spot carrying a dead rabbit, which she buries in a hole. But soon she hears a horrible sound coming from the hole, so she covers her ears in fear. Elsewhere, Andy and Kay spot a car on the road. Kay gets inside while Andy refuels. She notices a strange yellow fluid on the seat. Suddenly, a zombie appears, attacking the car, but Andy quickly starts the engine and drives off. Later, they see a zombie with its head buried in the ground and continue driving until they reach a remote area. Kay steps out to change their daughter's diaper, but suddenly collapses, choking and vomiting blood. Andy runs to her and holds her tight, realizing from her behavior that she's starting to turn. Meanwhile, Thumi drops a dead snake into the hole she dug earlier and notices the noise is gone. She almost climbs down to check, but changes her mind. Back in the car, Kay seems calmer. She checks her wound and sees yellow liquid oozing out. Terrified, she jumps out of the car screaming, afraid she'll turn and hurt her daughter. Andy hugs her and calms her down, convincing her to come back. He breaks the door handles so she can't run off if she loses control. While driving, a zombie suddenly appears in front of them. Andy tries to swerve but loses control and crashes into a tree. Luckily, they survive. Andy passes out for a while, and when he wakes up, he finds Kay has already turned into a zombie. He grabs Rosie and tries to escape, but Kay manages to bite his arm before he gets away. Andy straps the timer on his wrist and injects himself with the painkiller so he can keep moving. He carries his baby on his back, calming her with her mother's perfume. While resting, he spots the zombie responsible for their crash coming toward them. He grabs a stick to defend himself, but Thumi appears and cuts her hand, smearing her blood on a tree to distract the zombie away from Andy and his daughter. She then tells Andy that the zombie was her father. Andy continues traveling until he reaches the place his wife told him about before she turned. He enters an old school and meets Etta, a retired teacher who helps clean his wound and explains that most of the local people and former students have left the area. Outside, Andy notices a large fire and a woman shouting nearby. That night, he begins showing signs of infection, his body convulses, and he vomits blood. The next morning, he tells Etta that he's looking for a man named Willie to take care of his daughter after he's gone. Etta explains that the fires set by the Aboriginal people serve 2 purposes, burning the zombie corpses to cleanse the land and warning other zombies to stay away, or they'll be burned too. Andy sets off again, carrying his daughter on his back. Along the way, he encounters several zombies with their heads buried in the ground and hurries past them, but one notices him and starts following. Andy spots a car and tries to take it, but a man named Vic stops him and saves him from the pursuing zombie. Vic gives him the car keys and offers to help him escape the area. Andy agrees, and they drive away just in time. Vic takes Andy to his base, a rundown gas plant, where he introduces him to his wife, Lorraine, who's shocked to see another living human being. After some time, Vic asks Andy to leave his daughter with Lorraine and go to work with him. On the way, Andy learns what Vic really does. He hunts zombies, shoots them, and takes whatever they owned. But when they arrive, Andy discovers something horrifying. Vic traps zombies by locking normal people in cages and using them as bait. Shocked, Andy hides as he notices that Thummy is among the captives. And now the big question remains, what will happen to Lorraine and the baby in this place filled with death and danger? Suddenly the power goes out, and the little girl gets scared. Lauren starts playing with her to make her laugh, but then she notices a strange liquid on her stomach. We cut back to Vic and Andy at work, where Andy notices Vic using strange things to lure zombies into the area, things like human blood, guts, and a radio. Andy wonders what the point of all this is and why Vic is acting that way. After some time, they return to the place they've been living in. Lauren tells Andy that she took care of Rose and changed her clothes. Everything seems fine. A little later, Andy's hand starts shaking while he's playing with his daughter before putting her to bed. At that moment, Lauren approaches him and explains that she's not Vic's wife, revealing that Vic is a selfish man who saved himself at the cost of her husband's life and the lives of the factory workers. Suddenly, Vic shows up after hearing her and knocks Andy out with the back of his rifle. Hours later, Andy wakes up and finds himself locked inside the same cage as the little girl, Thummy. Under the pressure of the situation, he comes up with an idea to escape. He starts messing with the rope to attract the zombies' attention, pulls the rope, opens the door, and finally manages to escape with Thummy. They quickly head to the shelter where Lauren and Rose were staying, planning to take them and run away. Out of nowhere, Vic appears and starts shooting at them. Lauren rushes toward Vic to stop him, but a stray bullet hits her by accident, killing her instantly. Andy and Thummy run away and reach the cage where Andy had earlier seen another man locked up. But now the man is gone, as if he vanished. Andy decides to escape far away from Vic, and the two hide in a small pit for the night. While in the pit, they manage to break the chains that tied them up. Exhausted, they fall asleep. After a while, Thummy wakes up to find Andy banging his head against a rock, blood dripping from his forehead. The next day, as they walk, Andy tells Thummy about her father, admitting that he won't get better, that anyone bitten by a zombie can't be cured once 48 hours pass. Thummy gets angry at his words and runs away. Later, she finds her father dead, hanging on a tree trunk. Andy comes to comfort her, but she lashes out, and he walks away, heartbroken. As Andy keeps walking, his condition worsens to the point where he tries to bury his head in the dirt like the zombies do. Seeing this, Thummy decides to help him. She goes back, finds him lying on the ground, and helps him up. When Andy wakes, he sees Thummy holding Rose and realizes she came back to help. She promises to get him to the river. They finally reach the river, take a small boat, and head to the camp where Andy had last seen children playing by the riverbank. When they arrive, Andy looks for the family he saw before and meets the father, but unfortunately, the man has already been bitten. Without warning, the man pulls out a gun and tells Andy there are 6 bullets, 4 for himself and his family once they turn into zombies, and 2 left for Andy. Moments later, Andy hears 4 gunshots. Heartbroken, he picks up the gun, realizing his own time is coming soon. He contemplates using it on himself and his daughter, just like the man did with his family. Suddenly, Thummy runs toward him, urging him to go back to the village, saying it's the safest place. As they walk, they follow the smoke rising from the fires lit by the native tribes. Along the way, they enter an old railway tunnel, and Vic appears again. Andy tries to distract him to protect Thummy and the little girl. Vic shoots at him, forcing Andy to hide. A brutal fight breaks out between them. Meanwhile, Thummy leaves the car because Rose is crying in the dark. Vic heads toward them and hits Thummy, knocking her unconscious, then grabs the baby. Andy wakes up and rushes to Thummy's side, finding her still alive. He then runs toward Vic, who is holding the baby and crying. Andy sits beside him and asks for his daughter back. At first, Vic refuses but eventually hands her over, apologizing for Lauren's death and saying he never meant to kill her. The three of them continue their journey, but Andy's infection is reaching its final stage. He knows he only has minutes left before turning into a zombie. He asks Thummy to promise to take care of Rose and keep her safe. Then, as he starts turning, he gently touches his daughter's face and hugs her. To protect them, he puts his own daughter's arm in his mouth so he can't bite anyone, then ties his hands and restrains himself. Even as a zombie, Andy carries the two girls on his back, guided by Thummy using a stick with a piece of meat to lead him. Eventually, they reach the native camp. Thummy's mother rushes to them, overjoyed to see her daughter and the little girl. One of the warriors raises his spear to kill Andy, but Thummy stops him, sprays Andy's face with perfume, and in that moment, he briefly regains his consciousness, just enough to see his daughter safe. Finally, Thummy asks the warrior to end Andy's suffering. The tribe welcomes the little girl and celebrates her arrival. Thummy's mother examines Rose and finds a message written on her stomach, a final note from Andy, thanking them and describing his daughter. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.